Yeah, it was bad. Just really bad.
Do you see this shirt? I don't know how. I'm probably too close to the camera. You can't see the shirt. I'm filming this on Christmas. It's got this amazing shirt. It's really fucking rad Star Wars shirt. It's like Imperial Star Wars pants. It's rad as shit.
So I was gonna get in here and I was gonna do my whole like spiel, give you a recap of the movie, tell you how I didn't think it was necessarily a bad movie by itself, but that it ruins the trilogy. I was gonna go point by point, explaining exactly what I think, but I've seen a bunch of reviews, and I can link below like Chris Stuckman's. I think I just watched Jeremy Johns, I think is his name. I don't watch really any of his reviews. I don't know particularly why. I just not usually a huge fan of him, but you know, everybody, regardless of how you viewed the last couple of movies, seem to have about the same opinion of this one, which is that it's not a bad movie, but boy does it ruin the trilogy. And that's actually a little comforting for me in this time of depression and disappointment, that even people who hated The Last Jedi can come together and be disappointed about this last movie. So I'm not going to bore you with what I think. You can go ahead and watch them. I pretty much agree with everything they say. Put a little asterisk on that, and whatever. There you go, asterisk right there. Because, well, A, they're not my opinions. I'm not telling them to you. If you want an actual review of the movie, go ahead and let me know, because I'll do a more in-depth one of that if you're interested in hearing that. But what Jeremy Johns said, what Chris Stuckman said, what a bunch of other people, both in video form on YouTube and on articles, have said that I personally disagree with, is that they kind of take jabs at Rian Johnson. Now, I know for a fact that Chris Stuckman loved The Last Jedi, and before we continue this, just gonna let you know, like I said, I loved it. Last Jedi is my personal favorite Star Wars movie. Even with The Rise of Skywalker coming out, it is still my personal favorite Star Wars movie. If you ask me in a couple years, maybe my opinions will have changed. But as of recording, as of posting this video, it is still my favorite. But like I said, a lot of people are actually blaming Rian Johnson for this. I agree with most of them when they say that it's a tug of war and that this was kind of a back and forth between producers and writers and directors and decisions that they all made before there was even a plan put together. So let me explain to you exactly why I feel like this is not Rian's fault, because of what a lot of people have seemed to have been saying was that if The Rise of Skywalker was where they were going all along, then Rian kind of fucked it up and they should never have cast him as the director and sole writer of The Last Jedi. Now, whatever you may feel, I'll give it to you that maybe they shouldn't have given him the sole reins of writer. I'll go on record and say that I am extremely glad that they did. And then cards on the table, I am a huge Rian Johnson fan. I have not seen Brick. I believe that was his first movie he ever directed. I did see Looper back when that came out, and that movie was fantastic. I still love Looper. Other than Looper, Last Jedi is the only other Rian Johnson movie that I've seen, but I'm a huge fan of both of those. So I love his work. I love his style of writing. I watched all the behind the scenes. I've read and seen, I guess, a couple of interviews with him. I very much like how he makes movies, so I'm definitely going to keep supporting him. And, you know, hopefully you can understand that regardless of how you feel about these movies. But I can at least give you the ground that, you know, if maybe this whole thing couldn't have happened. Maybe it could have been put aside if they had just hired maybe a co-writer with Rian. Maybe he could have reined in some more of Rian's like bigger ideas that he wanted to run with. So the way people are kind of rationalizing it is JJ made the first Star Wars and he kind of set up a bunch of questions like who is Snoke, who are the Knights of Ren, who is Rey. Like there's all these questions that JJ kind of puts out there. And you can like feel free to imagine what the answers are. Something similar to what happened in the original trilogy. So JJ puts these questions out there, and he goes off. Rian comes in and answers these questions in a completely different way than literally anyone else would have answered them. I truly believe that only Rian Johnson would have answered these questions the way he did. Then Rian Johnson leaves. JJ comes back. And then JJ takes a look at what Rian did and goes, I would have done it differently. And then he does it differently, ignoring what Rian set up. But Rian comes in with these ideas. He doesn't retcon anything that JJ does, doesn't change a thing. He just takes these ideas and runs with them. That's all he does. He just runs them in a different direction than maybe JJ would have intended them to have gone. And that brings us to the second point why I feel that blaming Rian for The Rise of Skywalker being horrible just doesn't make any sense. And it's the argument that it's not what JJ intended. And sure, you can say that, oh, well, he had different ideas, or this isn't what he planned. JJ had no plan. He wasn't supposed to even come back and do another movie. Colin Trevorrow was fired, and then JJ came in to finish that movie. Now, I understand that some things were written before JJ came in. I'm actually not super knowledgeable about what was in existence and what, JJ added afterwards once Colin left. But JJ was only ever supposed to work on the one movie. He was supposed to set up this franchise and then bolt. He was supposed to get out and not come back. Then Rian was supposed to come in, set up the last movie, and answer some questions from the first, and get the fuck out and never come back. Now, they did give him a franchise of his own, which I'm very excited to see. It's not a part of this, but then somebody was supposed to come in and finish the whole thing off in a very explosive way, which I guess happened. But what ended up happening was JJ fucked off. Rian came in, answered the questions the way he wanted to, the way he was supposed to, and then, boom, he fucking left. And then JJ was like, oh, I don't know how to end a franchise. So let's talk about JJ for a second. I don't want to say I've lost all respect for him as a filmmaker, but I definitely don't trust him anymore. And I say that with the most timid inflection possible, because I don't know how much of what he did was actually out of spite, how much of it was focus grouped or focus tested. I don't know how much he actually wrote, how many digs at The Last Jedi were actually his idea. Truly, I don't know. One thing I can tell you is that JJ just doesn't have any new ideas. It's not what he does, and I'm fine with that. I'm okay knowing that JJ doesn't do original things. It's fine. Not everybody can do that. He's really good at remixing old stuff, which is why he was the perfect person to make The Force Awakens. I loved that movie. I don't think they could have honestly cast somebody better as the director and writer for that first movie, because you need somebody who can remix what you love to remind you why you love it. We needed that to get back into Star Wars because of the prequels and the Clone series, which I know some people did like the Clone Wars, but I mean, you needed to get back into the universe, live action fully, and you have to trust Star Wars movies again. He did that. He did it perfectly. You don't need that beyond the first movie. After that, it's just fan service, which is what Rise of Skywalker is. Then you get somebody with a fresh voice to come in and take the story in a new direction. Rian Johnson was the best person I think that they could have put in that position. But JJ has just never been able to answer questions right. In Lost, everybody hates the ending to Lost. He was only ever good at writing the mysteries. He was never actually good at solving them. Everybody is like, about his Star Trek movies. The most I've seen is people just being lukewarm and being like, they're fine. Or, oh, I'll watch them. I've never heard anybody praise the new Star Trek movies, because all they do is take the stuff from the old ones and do the exact same thing. And I mean, I guess if that makes money, it's not interesting, but I guess it makes money. And like I said, I really don't know how much of this is his fault. It's just, like, the response to The Last Jedi really, I think, fucked everything up. I don't know why Colin Trevorrow was fired. I do not know a lot about the backstage stuff, behind the scenes stuff that went on with The Rise of Skywalker. I'll probably learn about it within the next year eventually. But it just seems like a shit show. And I'm glad that they're taking the time to regroup and do something new with Rian Johnson's trilogy. They're giving him, I think, until 2023 to release the next movie. So, I'm hoping he takes this time to at least like plan out where he wants to go with his story. And it's really good that he doesn't have to do anything with the Skywalkers because he just has free reins to explore this universe and write whatever kind of story he wants. And like I said, I'm a fan of his filmmaking. If you're not, then I'm sorry, you're probably not going to like the next 3 movies if they keep him on for the entire thing and if they actually let him do what I hope they'll let him do. I'm sorry that you're not going to enjoy these next few movies, but good news is Disney's going to let Star Wars run for as long as humanly possible, so you'll probably get something you'll like after that eventually. I'm fine with Star Wars just being zip, boom, bang, look at how cool lightsabers are with no actual like thematical or story meaning. If it means that, later down the line, I can get another really cool, meaningful story at some point. We're all going to have to take turns in getting what we want out of this universe, and there'll be plenty of time to get, whatever everybody wants. I really don't think this last movie was Rian's fault. It was a big ball of a mess that had no plan. People were upset about Rian's movie, and Disney thought that they were going to lose money if they didn't pander to them, and so they fired Colin and brought back JJ because JJ panders really well, and they try to retcon The Last Jedi just to make the old people happy, and they set up this whole movie that doesn't even make sense to try to end the trilogy, and just, it's a bad time. In the end, this movie just doesn't fit with the first 2 movies that came before it. And as much as Disney would, tried to save this franchise, it's just, it doesn't fit. Even the people that didn't like this trilogy can tell that this movie doesn't fit. My family, my brother, my dad hates the new trilogy. It's their least favorite. I guess as a trilogy, it's also now my least favorite. If I had to watch only 2 of the trilogies, I would choose the original and the prequels because it tells a full story. But nobody's happy with this last movie. If you sit down and watch it as a standalone thing, it's fine. It's a standard Hollywood science fantasy action movie. It doesn't relate at all to the past 2. Nothing that comes to blows with this new movie were set up beforehand. Like, this could have been a fine ending to the trilogy. Like, I don't have anything against it. It could have been fine if they had set it up, but it wasn't. I think the direction it could have gone was far more interesting than what we got. But at least if this had been set up, I wouldn't be upset about it. I would be like, okay, it's what I expected. And I wouldn't be upset, but I guess you can't control everything. And I guess that's kind of where I leave this, where I think people need to stop blaming Rian for this. It's not his fault. He tried his best to take it in an interesting direction, and they just, looking back on it, I now see that there's absolutely no goddamn way that this last movie was ever going to end well, and they honestly should have just kept it at 2 movies. And that's how I'm thinking about it. There really is no true ending to the 2 movies that we got, and there are no 2 movies that set up the one we did. That the movie that we got is an ending to a trilogy that doesn't exist, and the 2 movies that came before will never have a concrete ending to the story that they were telling. And that's just probably the most disappointing thing about these last 6 years. So, tell me your favorite Star Wars thing. I want to turn this around and think of something positive. The thing that's keeping me going, the Obi-Wan TV show. I cannot wait to see Ewan McGregor back. I absolutely love him. He's a fantastic actor and just a joy to watch. So I'm very much looking forward to that. And of course, like I said, I'm really hoping Rian Johnson's movie trilogy is going to be good. So we'll see what happens with that. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope you had a happy holiday. And don't go see The Rise of Skywalker, I guess. Bye.